So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Yeah.
Mic check. Mic check. This is a mic check. Now, if this is the work, family, then I may have to get me a new setup. But I'm going to do this mic check. See if there's anything jumping. If you hear me, say something. Okay. I can hear me on the phone. So I got a live mic check right now. I'm going to see if anybody comes through. I may have lost my little moment since. So let me just, we are back, family. I'm back. Get the mic situated. I believe you can hear me. Shout out to Mr. K. Yes, you can hear me. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little situated and begin to get myself together. I'll wait a couple seconds or a few moments to see if anybody is going to come through. But we are going to get it started. I will again give a shout out to Mr. K for always being in the house and for the super chat that he provided. And I think what I had said was, yeah, I like your title, but it just a little too long for the algorithm. But I might dig into some of that black internationalism anyhow. Yes, Mr. K, I did get the email. I sent you a response. I got 2 of your emails, so I will be looking at, listening to, and evaluating that YouTube link you sent me and that Pan-African Congress information. I appreciate that. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, whether you are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, I forgot Instagram today, but hey, this is your brother Shabazz. This is the proper perspective. And what we try to do, and I do say try, I do mean try, because it get challenging, especially when you're the kind of person like me. I got ADHD, family. So it's real easy for me to get thrown off track and distracted. It's real easy for me to get buried into a particular idea and go down the rabbit hole and forget that there was something else sitting on top. And let me tell you, so managing free time with this ADHD brain of mine ain't a simple task. But anyhow, we gonna get this thing through. The microphone, the sound problem almost derailed me for another week. But we back, family. Welcome to the show. Like I said, this is your brother Shabazz. This is the Prophet. If you are new here, please take a moment to hit that like button. If you are on TikTok, if you are on Twitch or Facebook, I would appreciate it if you jumped on over, at least for a hot second. Come to youtube.com/@theproperperspective, and @ is the ampersand sign, not AT. But come on over to YouTube, hit the like button, share, and stay there so you can get the full breast of what we're talking about, and you can see all of the people that are fighting and duking it out, or go on back to where you prefer, but just hit that like button, mash up the like button, do all those things. So again, if you are new, I try to do this every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 o'clock. Today, as long as the mic remains hot, live, and active, we're going to do a little something different. We're going to talk about what I'm calling, not what I'm calling, but we're going to discuss a taxonomy. Let me see. Mr. K says, I'm going to crucify the video I sent you with Dana and her guests who claim to have Nigerian mothers but reps FBA. Wait a minute. I may have missed one, my brother. I got to go back and check my emails. I didn't see that one. But yeah, I would eviscerate some. I would use some perspectives on some of these, because they will not be the first. There are quite a few people promoting FBA on their channels for that algorithm check. But again, today we're going to try to stay focused on a taxonomy. Now, you know, I played with the title. I said this is the no taxonomy. Let me see. Shout out to a brother in TikTok that says, great outfit. I appreciate that. Now I may mess up name. Like I said, my TikTok feed is not on my primary workstation. It is just an adjunct on the phone. So it's hard for me to see the names on the screen. But shout out to Art Concepts by JAC. He live on TikTok. That's a good brother. We go way back. So shout out to you for showing up. Let's see. Let me try to get this situation straight now. We're talking about frameworks today. And I've been combing through like all of my social media. I've been dealing with people making comments and adding me and tagging me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, so on and so forth. So what I decided to do with the ADHD brain of mine is I've decided to go, let's dive into the rabbit hole of all of these comments. Let's sort them out because there seems to be constant repetitive talking points. And decided to build a taxonomy, or break down the exact recurring categories. And so I am calling them false rhetoric. I'm saying that this false rhetoric is being peddled out here. And as he said, sometimes by people who don't even fit the bill. But that's nothing new when it comes to deceptive paradigms. I mean, and I said because even historically, if you were to take just a cursory glance, go to Europe, invest the mustache man that everybody hates, and like you cannot even say his name because the algorithm may cut you down. But y'all know the short white man with the mustache that encouraged Germans to do all of the things that they did. Now, that man himself espoused an ideology about 7 foot tall, blue-eyed, blonde human beings. And that man was 5 foot tall, brown-haired, brown-eyed. And so what I'm saying is that's a constant thing you will see when people begin to delve into these false narrativized ideologies. There are oftentimes they are holding up ideas that they themselves cannot attain, that they themselves are the exact or the polarized opposite of. Now, that's just me on my little soapbox. But like I said, family, I built myself a taxonomy. So for instance, and I'm gonna give you all of the categories, but one major category that I'll be getting down in further is this whole "we fought alone" myth. It is a myth. The idea that African Americans have been secluded in this American Uncle Samian bubble, struggling entirely on our own. Nobody ever else helped us. They came to help us. That's what the FBA say. And it sounds so passionate. And based on the curriculum of this country, if you don't know, you don't know. So it sounds like it's accurate. But when you do some research, when you pick up actual history books from historians who are not paid by the Herbert Foundation or people of that ilk, you discover some things that could blow your mind. And so what I mean is we have African American historians. We have African American archaeologists. We have African American sociologists. All of these professions, people have went down the rabbit hole on their own accord to come up with what's the truth. Almost every time, it flies completely in the face of what the FBA rhetoric, if I don't want to call it a cult, Some people get offended when I call it a cult, but the FBA rhetoric espouses. The historians are like, that doesn't check out, that doesn't check out. And so, for instance, it came up a couple of times before, and it came up all throughout chat sessions. Chat room sessions is what I'm talking about. Ain't nobody from Haiti ever helped us. A whole Haitian man founded a city in this country. And black people flocked to that city. Now, that Haitian man didn't put up a sign, whites only. Y'all know who did those signs. That Haitian man didn't put up a sign, no African Americans, no black Americans, no enslaved Africans, no descendants of American slavery. No, there was a Haitian man that started, that founded, that established Chicago. And African Americans flocked and went to the city, and together we built that city into what it is. Whether you think it's a good city or not, shout out to all my folk from Chicago. Chicago was a dope ass city. Don't let Fox News tell you otherwise. But that's just one example. So I'm going to lay out my taxonomy, or at least the beginning of my taxonomy. It may grow. It may grow. Now, Mr. K says FBA is claiming they fought alone, but they always for everybody else in their struggle all the time. All the time. Self-pride and chauvinism. Now, we got to make this correction. FBAs do claim, let me say it this way. FBAs claim that this ethnicity of ours that I call African American, FBAs try to take it over, rename it, rebrand it, and say that we always fought for this, that, or the other, whatever it is that they're talking about. The truth of the matter is FBA ain't been here long enough to have fought for anything except reparations. And they don't fight for reparations. They talk about fighting for reparations. I have to always try to make that clear because there are so many people get confused, which is one of the components made of this taxonomy of the CIA op. So, but let me go on. Let me ground it this way. Now, I may take a few shots here and now and then, but this is not beef, technically. This is not emotional beef. Now, this might be some intellectual beef, but more importantly, this is a structured critique. And hopefully I'm building this taxonomy so that it can grow, it can breathe. It's like a matrix, so to speak. It's not etched and locked in stone. In every new chat session, every new TikTok response, every new YouTube commentary in the chat room or on video page becomes a new receipt that I add to the book, to the taxonomy. So for now, I have broken this down into 6 categories. Now, again, I'm not saying these are the only 6. I'm not even saying they're the best 6. These are the 6 that I have developed based on an extensive amount of reading through the comments. Shout out Shaka Jones 7250 who says we are an African people. Yes, indeed. We are an African people. And Lance, how you doing, Lance? I am a tether, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm pretty sure that fits one of the categories of my taxonomy. Because even though my entire family tree fits the FBA, because I don't talk famously about the FBA cult, I become non-FBA. But then they'll say, no, we didn't kick you out the group. King Tether at your service. So let's go. Let's begin. The framework that I'm talking about, this taxonomy, 6 categories. The first one I mentioned briefly, I really call it historical isolationism. That's my big academic term. That's my big English word because I was an English major and I love vocabulary. But what does historical isolationism mean? I'm talking about the we fought alone myth, the solo struggle, that we've been abandoned, false narrative, the idea that nobody ever helped, the lone wolf lineage. That's what historical isolationism is. It's also historical revisionism, but it's when you deliberately ignore, or when you have been deliberately miseducated to think it's always been just us. Like that song by Ice Cube. It's always been just us. No justice, just us. I mean, that has some resonance. But that just us has included more than just us as the descendants of American slavery. There have been, quote unquote, black immigrant groups that have fought alongside us, lived with us, and so on and so forth. So that's category one, historical isolationism. Category two is the zero-sum fallacy. Shout out to Robert Tran, who says teach, who says peace, and me as well. I think that's in response to Shaka Jones's comment. Let me see. Shout out to, okay, I can't see the names no more, but that was, again, and maybe I should put it on the screen. Historical isolation is category one, and I'll put it on the screen just in case we get some other things rolling here. So let's just throw that up. So that was category one, historical isolationism, the we fought alone myth. Now we go into category number two, is what I'm calling the zero-sum fallacy. The zero-sum fallacy. What does that mean? It's acknowledging somebody else's contribution as a threat to your own contribution. They call us, in other words, they call this the crab bucket mentality. Zero-sum fallacy means the only way that you can understand a thing, a subject, a topic, a fact, an idea, is if it is only dedicated to you. Any leeway, any nuance means that your position has crumbled. That's a zero-sum fallacy. And it comes from the crab bucket mentality. So that's category two. Now, category three, let me get this one on the screen. Category three, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call chronology blending. This is what we call chronology blending. What is chronology blending? Again, now it also has something to do with historical revisionism, rewriting the truth, rewriting the historical document. But chronology blending is specifically projecting modern labels backward on history where they didn't exist. Just like when FBA say the FBAs, we the ones that fought in the Revolutionary War. No, you're blending chronology. FBA didn't exist during the Revolutionary War. Now, there are African Americans who fought during the Revolutionary War, but you can't project this modern day label backward onto history. It didn't exist. Now, another way to think of that is timeline tampering. Tampering with the time machine revisionaries. Because they do like to go back and blend things together. So that's category three. Now you might already be, if this resonates with you, hit the button, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. But you may already be thinking, I've seen some of these comments. I've seen people doing this. I just didn't have a word for it. And you're not. You may be like, yo, this brother smoking something. These words, all these, what is he talking about? This don't make no sense. Okay, I'm trying to break it down. So category four of my 6-part taxonomy. And like I said, y'all please have to excuse me. I'm an English major. I'm a nerd. I'm a blur, so I like big words. Epistemic closure. Epistemic closure. In other words, the fact-proof fortress. What does that mean? Those who deny risks, if you have epistemic closure, then that means, one, you start off from a point of knowing something. But in spite of the fact that you start off from a point of not knowing something, you assert information that you believe is factual and that is true. But the closure, that's the epistemic part, the knowledge part. The closure is because you've asserted it. Anytime somebody tells you, that's not factually correct. Actually, did you know that in 17 this is actually what was going on? And you shut down. This is basically what you do. That's closure. Walling yourself up, brawling yourself against facts. I don't want to hear it. And I got that a lot in the comments. So the proof fortress, you build an ideology, you build, I think my cousin called it apologetics one time. You build this wall around your arguments, and you will not receive, you will not listen, hear, or partake in any facts that say otherwise. So when we refuse documented evidence, the moment it contradicts the story. Now, some other people will call that cognitive dissonance. But category 4, let me shout out to some people in the chat room. Let's see. Trend says, it's European propaganda from the early 18th century when the colonists were trying to break away from their land English masters. This is absolute true. This is the isolationism. And the playbook that they're saying comes from the playbook of some old, almost maybe damn near dead supremacists. Shout out to Incognito who said, Hotep, peace to you, my brother, Hotep. Mr. K says the FBAs are going out their way towards a self-inflicted Mandela effect on African-American history. And that's why we do this. We do this because, I said earlier, this is not necessarily beef. It may be intellectual beef, but this ain't that emotional beef. I just like the facts. I like it when people have the facts. You can call yourself FBA all you want to. Most people who are dissatisfied with the FBA label, they're dissatisfied because of the factual inaccuracies, not because of the label itself. It's the self-inflicted Mandela effect. Shout out to Daconomite. Shout out to you because you said hello and you were over there on Twitch. So I appreciate that. Twitch is getting a little something, something. Then Tustin says no sense. I hope he's talking about, the particular FBA commentary that I'm breaking down and classifying as opposed to my categories. But again, I'm trying my best, family. Shabaka, shout out to you. One love, peace, and unity. Proper perspective. Forward we go. Indeed. So, what was it? We were at category 4. And that's the fact-proof fortress. Now let's get into category 5. I'm just breaking it down before we get into the intricate details, the nitty-gritty, and the specific comments that inspired me to make these, to draw this taxonomy. So category 5. This is what we're going to call, at least right now, boundary sanctification. What does that mean? That means making the boundary holy and pure. It's sacrilegious to go against this. Now, this is when we start to get a little bit closer to some cult like activity. But it's when you treat the act of drawing the line as automatically, instinctively virtuous. And you don't care if the line is based upon truth or falsehood. The line is sacred. You don't care about the facts. This indeed, there's a brother that wanted to show me, because I said in my last video, I'm not going to speak on behalf of FBA, especially when it comes to delineation. I'm not going to offer my view of what delineation is defined as, because every time I do, they tell me that's not it. So a good FBA brother sent me a screenshot. I got to see if I can find that. He sent me a screenshot of what delineation is to the FBA. And I'm like, okay, finally somebody answered the question. But this is the boundary sanctification. It's delineate. This taxonomic category is about delineation in a nutshell. Basically, what I mean is this big old ugly academic word, boundary sanctification. It means that the line itself is the code. It means that the line itself is the gospel. It is holy. It is pure. You can't challenge it. You must accept it. And if you don't accept it, something is wrong with you. Maybe you're a tether. Maybe you're not even an FBA, because this thing is so holy. It has to be. It has to actually be embedded into your core. And the only way that you couldn't understand it is if you're not one of us. This is boundary sanctification. This is cult. This is cultism. But I ain't supposed to call it a cult. I'm not allowed to call it a cult. So Pan Mulattoism is in the house. Peace, family. Pan Mulatto says peace. Pan Mulatto says the proper perspective. Will you be dropping the link for the guest join elder? I might. I'm not too sure. I might. Initially, I had meant to put it in there before I got started. Microphones got messed up, so I might do that, depending on what topic that you want to discuss is. Dr. Jones says FBA is a cult. Cameron Clinton, Amerindians. Cameron Clinton says Amerindians. Yeah, those are some people that are not African Americans. So again, that was what did I say? We were at category 5, the sanctification of the boundary. The sanctification of the boundary. So let me keep moving to indigenous, or rather I should say, let me keep my structure on point. Category 6. Category 6. So category 6, ladies and gentlemen, is indigenous. A coincidence. Indigenous reclassification. So this is the 6th category of my taxonomy. And what I'm saying is, when you encounter FBA, you will get some comments that fit this category. So overall, you will always, these are 6 broad categories. And when you deal with FBA, when you talk to them, you watch their videos and whatnot, you will see the overwhelming majority of their talking points falls in one of these 6 categories. And so indigenous reclassification, the number 6, is what I also like to call it, aka ancestor swapism, destiny flipism. A couple of brothers told me, you talk about the myth of the black mound builders. Exactly. The mound builder myth. We built the mounds because that's how long we've been here. So indigenous reclassification, and like I just said, they take the playbook from 18th century white folk. Because 18th century white folks say that they were the original Native Americans. Tried to take over the Native American tribes and territories. So now FBA says, it's my turn. So, okay, let me get serious. Indigenous reclassification. This is that African Americans are literally the original indigenous people of Turtle Island. And sometimes they tie it to just Turtle Island. Sometimes they tie it to mound building. And they say it predates all of the African immigration entirely. And yet there are no scholars. There are no historians worth their name, worth their insult that are with it. So that's the sixth category, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Mulatto says he wants to discuss the FBA topic respectfully. And that's cool. I probably will drop a link in there so that we can discuss the FBA topic respectfully. Now, I will say, I did this from my cousin. I will say this. I'll cut you off in a heartbeat. I'll mute that mic and boot you on out. I'm in a heartbeat. So keep that in mind. Let me see. Oh, that's an AI summary. I thought somebody was saying something on TikTok. So when I do drop a link, that is fine. You might want to make sure that you are continuing the conversation in the chat room so that you can show and prove that you are a respectful individual. Let me see. Sky KC says, LOL, Native American FBA is entertaining. See, it's not entertaining to me, but I appreciate your statement. Like, it's a little more infuriating to me, but people tell me I take this too seriously. So now Brian Fuller said FBA versus Pan-Africanism doesn't make sense. Pan-Africanism organization and foundational Black American is a lineage. Thank you for introducing the taxonomy. Brian Fuller. FBA is not a lineage. It cannot be. FBA is a name attached to an ideology that fits the taxonomy we're talking about today. But stick around. I'm sure you will hear things you disagree with. You might learn something if you have an open mind. So, like I said, that's the taxonomy. That's all 6 categories, at least the ones that I have right now. So now we're going to go back. Let's start over and let's narrow down. Let's circle the examples. Because like I said, this is basically a review of the comments that have been made in reference to several of my previous videos. And what I had initially, or eventually what I got around to saying was, I found myself continuing to repeat the same things. Sometimes to the same people, sometimes to different people. But so like, okay, well, this will at least ground the whole thing into one encapsulated response. So this is a response video in a way. I'm responding to several people. So again, category 1, historical isolationism. So this is the whole "we fought alone" myth. And you hear FBA saying it a lot of times. Nobody ever came. We've been here. We got out the mud all on our own. Nobody lifted a finger. And so I had some information. I had to look at this. I'm like, okay, I was an English major. I wasn't a history major, but I read as much history as I could. I did not study I didn't major in African American history, but I read as much as I could. And so on the surface, I'm like, well, that sounds right. That resonates. I understand, even though I disagree with the anger, with the xenophobia that FBA is using to deliver the information. I understand why they're delivering information. I was under the impression that we've been here all by our limbless selves too. But when I go to look it up, I'm like, I'm gonna fact check this. Because I said to myself, even if they're right, that still doesn't justify the hate. And so I said, okay, let me fact check it. So let me see something there before I go further. Tony Smith. Tony Smith says you can't be seriously wearing that shirt. Again, xenophobia. So you gonna take somebody seriously based on the shirt that they wear. You ain't even got a picture on your profile. FBA for life. Always talking about FBA. Where are we going with this? If you stick around, you're gonna find out. I'm breaking down all of the false narratives that FBA parades everywhere they go. Shaka Jones says Pan-Africanism is a global belief in African Black unity. Exactly. It's not an organization. There are organizations that are Pan-Africanists. And there are people, there are humans, African Americans, Africans on the continent, Caribbeans, Black Brits, Blacks in Canada, maybe even Mexico, that are Pan-Africanists. Shout out to the boogeyman. FBA cannot intellectually be defended. And then this is a shot at Pan Mulatto. That half white man is just going to waste your time shaking my head. Tony Smith, how are Black Aboriginals on every continent except this one? How are Black Aboriginals on this continent? Is what oh no, hold on. Let me slow myself down. I like the fact that you said continent. Because we ain't talking about the whole American continent. We're talking about the contiguous 40 under Uncle Sam's dominion, the plus 2, Hawaii and Alaska. You don't get to group the whole continent just to try to prove a point about some Black Aboriginality and then turn around and say all those other Black people ain't us. So Mr. K says FBA for life, and FBAs always talk about everyone else just to validate their own rights as FBAs. Pan Mulatto says, respectfully, you also have European ancestry, bro. Black light, peace and love, y'all. Shout out everybody. Let me see if I got anybody. Shout out to anybody watching on TikTok. Shout out to Cujo Atkins Battle, who says there are no Aboriginals on every continent. Thank you, my brother. There are no Black Aboriginals on every continent. So again, now let's get to this thing. So what I was saying was, I feel the pain. I feel agony. It sounds like a truth when I hear an FBA person says, it's just been us all along all this time. I go looking it up and I'm like, that ain't true either. Now, again, I disagree with the hateful way the FBA said it, but I thought it was true. And so history, what Malcolm X said, history, that's that pursuit that best informs us, something like that. That's not a nigga quote. And so again, I'm like, Haitians helped fight for American independence. Haitians helped fight for American independence. Now they couldn't do that if they weren't here. And if they were fighting for American independence, and we were helping fight for American independence, even though the idea of it just makes me a little sick, but the fact remains we were fighting for American independence right alongside our Haitian brothers and sisters. And like I said earlier, Jean-Baptiste Pont du Sable, I don't know if I said that name right. I do not speak French. I just like to play like I do. But he was born in Saint Mark, Saint Domingue. That's Haiti. Around 1745. He is recognized by the city of Chicago and the Encyclopedia Britannica as the founder of Chicago. So this notion that we've been here all along by ourselves, that was the 1700s, family. We've been here for a long time by ourselves, but we ain't been here the whole time by ourselves. We ain't been fighting all by ourselves. His history records, and I'm going to get this name so wrong because I can't say it in French. Let me put it on the screen. I'll put it on the screen. And if anybody, y'all want to give me a phonetic, I should have did this beforehand, but I didn't think about it in just this second. So there is this, as we're talking about wartime, there's this regiment out there. The regiment is called the Chasseurs Volontaires de Saint-Domingue. Now, like I said, I know I butchered the French language. So what chasseur means, or however it's supposed to be said, if I had my best English guess, volontaire is volunteer. So 545 is the lowball count, and some historians put it up to 800. Freedom of color from Haiti. They fought at the siege of Savannah in 1779. They are on record as being the largest black regiment in the Revolutionary War. The largest black regiment. There's a monument in Savannah today that was built in honor of those folk who are not African Americans, who aren't the foundation of Black Americans, but they are Haitian. They were here, fought alongside us. So you can look that up if you so desire. Now, Pan Mulatto says there's no evidence of Du Sable being born in Haiti, respectfully. Some historians, there are historians that say he was. There are historians that say he doesn't. I don't think it's settled fact. Now, let's see. Therese of Dilla says, at this point, I feel like they are a distraction that is being used to keep us from our divine purpose. We are not like any other people on earth. We are the chosen. Now, depending on how you mean that, I ain't 100% clear on who the they is. But like, if the they refers to FBA, I would agree they are a distraction. The boogeyman says Pan Mulattoism. Some, but most my ancestry is overly African. Okay, so I follow that thread. Now, so again, this idea that we was always here by ourselves. Let me clarify. I'm not taking anything away from what we did as African Americans. I'm not saying that the Haitian regiment was the largest of all of every. Let me make sure I get this right. What I'm saying is the Chasseur Voltaire de Sodomingue. It was the largest single military unit. That was a regiment. That was a battalion of black soldiers in the overall war. But it doesn't mean that there were more of them than African Americans fighting overall. So I'm just trying to clarify that. When you go looking at the numbers altogether, African American participation was vastly larger. There's no problem with that. There's no beef with that. But the African American soldiers were spread across many different places. If you were to go and look it up, you would see something like break down the numbers. If they try to highlight it, there were factions, black loyalists who sided with the British. An estimated 15,000 or 20,000 African Americans who fought against Uncle Sam because the British promised them freedom. If we win, y'all free, instantly. Uncle Sam said, if we win, y'all still slaves. So the British promised enslaved Africans. And I say it is, leave your plantation, leave the master, support us in the fight, and you get your freedom when all the smoke clears. But also, that's what they call in the history books black loyalists. Those were African Americans. There are also a group of what they call patriots. Those are the African Americans who fought alongside or who fought for Uncle Sam. There was an estimated 5,000 to 9,000 African Americans. And so it's unlike later wars, the Continental Army, when that came about, that was racially integrated to some extent. Black and white soldiers side by side in the same local militia state lines. But what I'm saying is, again, this idea, it's always been us by ourselves, family. Y'all know that's the truth. No, That's false. It's fake. It's dishonest. Now, if you didn't know it was dishonest, if you didn't know that it was false, then you are not to blame. There are always things we don't know. But we have a responsibility to check things out when people say them. Facts over feelings. Ain't that like the internet slang? So again, you could go look at the 1st Rhode Island Regiment. You can look at the Chasseurs Volontaires de Saint-Domingue. But we ain't been here by ourselves the whole time. We ain't been fighting on the whole time. There have been groups of black immigrants, since that's what you want to call them, that have been here for, what was that? That was 1700s. So, Jones, yes, I mean the African Americans who chose to side with the British. There were African Americans that fought for the Brits. There were African Americans that fought for Uncle Sam. Just like in Civil War, there were African Americans who fought for the North, or enslaved Africans for the North, and enslaved Africans who fought for the South. Now, you could have an argument about whether or not the enslaved Africans who fought for the North were fighting of their own total volition, but they still fought. They still participate. So, yes. Pan Mulatto says to the boogeyman, it doesn't matter what you call yourself, your DNA doesn't lie, my mulatto brother. Okay, now, that's an interesting statement. And if you got African DNA in you, you can't deny it. So again, we are on this taxonomy of soloism, the solo struggle. And specifically, we're looking at contributions from our Haitian brothers and sisters. And so there's another factoid that a lot of us don't know. And because we don't know it, we fall for the FBA okie. Now, there are some of us, if you've studied like political history, if you've studied civil rights, you may have heard of the Scottsboro Boys. It's not really taught extensively in the schools, but it's one of those things that gets kicked around under certain umbrellas of black power, black political fight and struggle and whatnot. So some of us have some familiarity with who the Scottsboro Boys were. But even amongst us who know, most of us don't know that the Scottsboro Boys were assisted by some Haitian brothers and sisters. So again, point one, they can't help if they not here. Point two, they've been here. Point three, they've been helping. George Padmore and Arnold Ward organized Ada Wright's 1932 European speaking tour during the International Scottsboro Boys campaign. And this is confirmed by a writer. I don't want to call her a historian if she's not a historian, but a writer, Susan Pennybaker's book, From Scottsboro to Munich. And that was printed by the Princeton University Press. So again, FBA like to say it's always been us by ourselves. And then they like to start picking. Them Haitians ever did nothing for us. Well, there go your history lesson for today. We ain't been always by ourselves. And we have had assistance by the Haitian black community in America. Now, I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit. Well, I don't know. Maybe I won't. I'm going to leave it at that. I'll save my soapbox just in case I actually get what I'm predicting to be as some pushback. Now, I will say this, though, because that was about the Haitians who have helped and who have worked and lived alongside us. There's another brother especially if you're into history, especially if you're into culture and archives. A brother named Arturo Alfonso Schomburg. This is Harlem. Puerto Rican born, Afro-Puerto Rican, an African in Puerto Rico, an Afro-Boricua. Now, he arrived in Harlem in the 1890s. He recalled being told as a little bitty schoolboy, black people ain't got no history worth writing about. Black people ain't got no history worth noting. And that stuck with him. He immediately recognized these folk mean all of us. They don't mean African Americans. They mean all of us. They mean the continental Africans, the Caribbean Africans, the Canadian Africans. They mean all of us. So Arturo Alfonso Schomburg spent his life collecting the proof otherwise. And he didn't do it all by himself. In 1911, he co-founded. You know what that means? That means different people working together. Don't that sound like Pan-Africanism to you? It do to me. So in 1911, he co-founded the Negro Society for Historical Research, specifically so that so that continental African, so that African Caribbean or Afro-Caribbean and African American scholars all come together and work together. He partnered directly with John Edward Bruce, an African American, known as a race man, and a journalist. They collected material side by side. Now, this collection was acquired later by the New York Public Library. And even the acquisition was supported by the Harlem Renaissance, the coalition, the network of African Americans in the Harlem Renaissance. And it thus became the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. It's now considered the leading research institution in the world for African American and African diaspora history. So again, isolation? No. Now, I know this is just one example. I know these are just 2 or 3 examples, and I'm stacking them to show and prove the narrative that we always been here by ourselves, that ain't nobody else ever helped, is false. It's not isolation. And it's not a one-time thing. So when you go and really do the history, and this is why, like, for even the brother that said, or the sister that said, at this point, I feel like it's a distraction, or at least, I think what they were saying was FBA is a distraction. The thing that I say, the good thing about it is, if you are curious, if you are, even if you're suspicious, if you take the time to look up the history, then you find out, oh, well, 1, I just learned something new. 2, FBA be lying. Now, I don't know if they're lying on purpose and they really know the truth, or they lying just because they just don't know. I don't know. But that's in my taxonomy. So when I give you these facts, now, if you say, oh, well, I'm an FBA, but I didn't know that we ever had help from somebody else, I might have to change my thoughts. Then you don't belong in the taxonomy. But if you FBA and you say, I don't care, you're lying, that don't mean that we was getting help. You in the taxonomy. That's that fortress. The fact-proof fortress. So, again, Pam Mulatto says, well, let me see where we at in chat. Where we at in the chat? Shout out to my cousin, Dr. Dennis Assault Winkler is in the house. What's up, cuz? Shaka Jones says the term Afro-American was used in 1831, and the term African-American was used in 82. I covered that last time. I might got my date wrong, but it was in the 1700s. Let's see, what else did I miss? Oh, I missed quite a lot. Let me see. Pam Mulatto. Okay, here we go. Let me catch up. Okay, shout out to Shaka. Orosha Holland Perkins, I'm not sure how to say your name, I do apologize for that, says, what about the African slave traders? Did they fight with the Europeans? That's a good question. That's an honest, good question. It may not be coming from an honest place, but I don't know you, so I can't say that. What about the African slave traders? Did they work and fight with the Europeans? No. The African slave traders didn't fight against the Europeans, but there were Africans in every area of Africa where there was a slow coon who was helping white folk. There were other Africans fighting against them. So just like today, we got people in the black community, FBA, we got people in the black community today that fight against all of us, that fight against our freedoms, that fight against our liberties, that fight against our rights, that fight against our dignity. But we got the rest of us that not only fight the white supremacists, but we also fight these melanated coons. So yes, there were some Africans involved in assisting the slave trade, but there were just as many, if not more, Africans involved in fighting against it. In a war, you're going to have a winner and a loser. Obviously, the ones that were fighting against the Europeans didn't win. So thank you to Arosha for that question. Let me see. Brian Full says, so you embrace the term African American, which was coined by Jesse Jackson, but demonize the term foundational Black American coined by Tariq Nasheed. This doesn't make sense. I like that question. I have covered this several times. I know you to some extent you knew here. This is a very interesting one. So let's slow this down. Let's break this down, especially for people on TikTok and Twitch and Facebook as well. So I embrace the term African American. Yes. Now, he says it was coined by Jesse Jackson. Now, I'm not going to get into a dispute about what you mean by coined. Now, if you say was popularized by Jesse Jackson, I might give you that. I'm not going to necessarily give you coined when even somebody else in the chat room has pointed out the term African American has been within our community for hundreds of years before Jesse Jackson. But I want to repeat this. I said this before last week. It's floating around on my TikTok page. Before Jesse Jackson took the mic and made the announcement about we're going to use the term African American. Now again, most people don't know, there was a convention that was called. At the convention, somewhere around 75 organizations showed up. Some of those organizations were civil rights organizations. Some of those organizations were Pan-African organizations. Some of those organizations were college fraternities and sororities. There was a whole 75 organizations came together. This is in the 80s. And they actually had a full-scale public debate on what we should be calling ourselves. Everybody agreed that we should call ourselves African American. Now, they made Jesse Jackson the spokesperson. He was the hottest thing since sliced bread at the time. So he was the most popular individual, politically speaking, at the time. So he got the go-ahead to make the announcement. But this wasn't Jesse Jackson's baby. This was a full-fledged historian, backed, psychologically backed, sociologically backed, all the black professionals, all the black documentarians, everybody that does anything about African Americans came to that meeting, and they all agreed that we should call ourselves African American. They looked at the history, they looked at the facts, they saw that it's been in use randomly since the 1700s, and they said this is what we need to go forward with. Now, I'm sorry if you have been so in the Tariq Nasheed FBA hole that you don't know this. But like I said earlier, there's plenty of things we don't know. If you take the time to fact check information that's provided to you, then that's we say, well, wait a minute, because I'm not telling you don't use FBA if you want to use it. I won't use it. I'm not going to use it. But I'm not telling you not to use it. I'm telling you it's a false narrative that Jesse Jackson coined it or gave it to us or started calling us. I'm telling you that's false. However you feel about him. So I'm off my box, family. I hope I have responded to Brian Fuller's comment in an ineffective, respectful manner. The boogeyman says, I'm sure Trump has African DNA, but you never hear him call himself black. Mr. K says, Dr. Dennis Assault Winkler, we meet again. Okay, that's cool. Pan Mulatto. Let me see if I can get this in. That's a personal one. I'm not going to do that. Let's see. Shaka Jones. The term African American was birthed out of the hate of our African Caribbean brothers and sisters. Exactly. Let's see. Now, Orosha says, Cap. Now, again, this is what I mean. You provide an FBA person. If I'm understanding, if I got you wrong, then I do apologize. But I remember answering a question for Orosha, and now I see Cap. So when you provide an FBA person with some factual history, their reaction is, you're lying. It's in the taxonomy, folks. So let me see. D-Lo Brown says, you should be thankful for Queen Isabel from Castile, Spain, to send you to the Caribbean. Go to the Queen. Okay, that's a troll. I shouldn't have even read it. So let's see what else is going on. The boogeyman says many white people have discovered African DNA. These are facts. Dr. Dennis Assault says Pan Mulatto changed his name back. He was imitating the Pan-African persona last week. Hey, I thought that was what you picked up on. So Big Ross 8340 says Pan-Africans are the biggest contributors to the rise of the FBA movement. When ADOS and FBA split, Pan-Africans took FBA side and trashed the ADOS movement, then split from the FBA when the xenophobia got to be too much. Now, again, that's a perspective I have heard. I was never aware that Pan-Africans took FBA side. But you see what I now say? Bruce Kemp, you're lying. The FBA say. That's something that I would have to dig into and determine for myself if that's true. Now, it is interesting because if it is true, then it is interesting that according to Big Gross, the split between the Pan-Africans and the FBA came when the FBA decided, let's start the brigade. Because that's why we're here today. Now, Brian Fuller. I don't know what Brian Fuller. All right, let me slow myself down. Because the comments are going so fast, I'm not going to get to everybody. So I apologize for that. If I miss something that is terribly important, then you can repost it and then see. Or you know what you could do? You could send it as a super chat. I'll make sure to read it then. I ain't trying to dig into no pockets, family. I'm just here for the information. I know that sounds like somebody else. I don't mean to say that. So let me slow down. Category 2, because we got a ways to go. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this done all today, especially since I started off a half hour behind because of the microphone problems. But category 2, the zero-sum fallacy. And what I said earlier was this is the crab bucket mentality. So I had a commenter, I had someone, and again, I had someone make this comment on one of my videos. And they said, FBA now have successfully overcome enlarge and even support every culture and ethnicity in this world financially. Africa and North America should support FBA businesses either online, local venues, and restaurants. Now, this is an FBA advocate. And I think I don't have too much to say about this, except this. Supporting an African immigrant-owned restaurant is not in competition with supporting an FBA-owned business. I'm like, I don't even know where you got this from. this comment treats this financial economic support thing as a trade-off when there's no actual resource constraint requiring anybody to choose. You can I go to an African-American restaurant. I go to an African-owned restaurant. I've seen Africans in African-American soul food restaurants. I've seen Caribbean brothers and sisters in African-American soul food restaurants. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what rock you're living under. But anyhow, that's just one of the comments. Now, another commenter who goes by the name of Norris Cool had this to say. Black Americans have become the most dominant black culture in modern history. Look at the I Show Speed World Cup performance. Look at the movie Michael. So everybody want to attach themselves to Black Americans' influence without adding value to Black Americans economically, politically, or culturally. So no, we're not going to Pan-Africanize Black American culture by attaching it to Africa and then let others graft their way into the culture that Black Americans' blood, sweat, and tears created. Now in these comments, and it's like, just in case anybody just got in, these ain't my words. These are not my words. These are live response comments from FBA advocates all over my timeline. Now I will say, let me pause for a second, because the boogeyman is taking a challenge to something that I believe the other brother said. He said, that's a lie. FBA ideology came from ADOS. ADOS came from John Tatum, a white who created right-leaning black front organizations who parrot the replacement theory. I am not going to disagree with you, because I found that evidence as well. Shout out to Shabaka Black King says Black King One Piece Unity. Bronze Man is a threat to no one. The Reaper hardly knows what it's about. Okay, I must have something. So again, let's go back to this Norris Cool thing. And this is why I really chuckled. I chuckled a lot. I love the fact that Norris brings up I Show Speed. Especially since many FBA people, first they was foreign, then they wasn't foreign. When they found out he was foreign, even though he ain't foreign, FBA people did not I Show Speed. And they say he's not one of us. His mother is good. But then you got FBA saying, look at I Show Speed. He proves that black people have the most world dominant culture. Okay, let's calm this down. So I Show Speed as a Ghanaian mother, I would still consider him an African American. But the tether rules of Tariq Nasheed don't necessarily allow you to align yourself with I Show Speed. Now, let me go back. As far as Laurie again, making an argument, nothing. Both of these are nothing burgers. Because like I said, I've seen continental Africans and American soul food restaurants. I've seen all of us everywhere, family, is what I'm trying to say. I've seen us all supporting each other. Again, I like this personal anecdote, and I know it's an anecdote, but all FBA do is give anecdotes. So I'm like, I got an African American doctor, I got a Liberian dentist, I got not Liberian, I got a dentist from Ivory Coast, I got a Liberian mechanic. This is what black people do. This is what Pan-Africanism is. You work together. But that's all I got. So that's what I got to say about like this whole. I probably could say some more about whether or not African American culture is the world's most dominant. I don't know if that's factually true. I know it feels good to say it. And I think you would probably have an easier time if you drew down on which element of African American culture. If you were to try to say something about hip hop culture has become a world commodity, that stands off as reasonable. But that's not all of what African American culture is. But that's for another time. Let's move on. We are doing this taxonomy. Category 3, the chronology blending, also known as the time machine magicians, timeline tampering. Now, Lori Nelson says, I have ancestors born in America 100 years prior to 1884. Black indigenous in United States were being reclassified, land stolen, captured during tribal wars. They were shipped to the Caribbean island, Africa, New Mexico, and Cuba. Now, I think it's very interesting that there's no historical record to corroborate any of this. There's no historical, like you have to lane jump, you have to shift, you have to destiny swap to make this even halfway make sense. But this is what revisionaries do. This is chronology blending. Take a little bit of the story from the Native Americans, take a little bit of the story from the enslaved Africans, slap them together, and you got a whole new me sandwich. Now, somebody by the name of Anunnaki, and the name alone should say something to you. Anunnaki says 1782, according to history, we were slaves, they're not Americans. So how African Americans when we were supposed to be slaves? So this Anunnaki would just be called a slave. Don't call me African American. I was a slave. That's the real name. And Leo Kazi says it's not 1965, it's 1863. And Bryant came along and said FBA been around since the 1700s. So how could it be a CIA plot? And I got something for all of this. This is the historical revisionism. This is chronology blending. If you don't want to just call it spurious lies. So here's what the documented record shows. African Americans were only organized under the label African or African American since the 1780s. Now again, you don't have to take my word for it. There you go again with that all care stuff. Well, you go look up the Free African Society in Philadelphia in 1787. You go look up the African Methodist Episcopal Church founded in 1816 by Prince Hall's African Lodge. No FBA in either of those titles. In 1784. Go look those up. They didn't say the Slave Society Philadelphia. It wasn't called the Slave Methodist Episcopal Church. Prince Hall didn't call his lodge the Slave Lodge. It called the African this, that, or the other. All the way back to the 1700s. We were Africans with chains on our ancestors. We were Africans on the boat. We were Africans on the auction block. We were Africans on the plantation. We Africans today. So this claim that African self-identification is a recent one. 1960s era imposition. It doesn't survive contact with historical record, a record that's over 240 years old. And let's be clear, specific term, F to the B to the A, as used in this debate, as used in this conversation, this is what the modern coinage is. The new kid on the block, the new Johnny come lately to conversations about identity and consciousness is this FBA thing. And it doesn't matter that it's popularized. Actually, might actually matter more the fact that it has only been popularized with social media, online camps. So try to claim it dates to the 1700s, try to claim we are those people and those people are us. No. You are a time machine revolutionary. So whether you are Anunnaki or Lori Nelson or any other no FBAs, stop lying. Now, let me say this though, because I can understand. I hope that I keep saying this. I'm trying to impress this upon you. I can understand if you don't know this information. Some of it I didn't know. A lot of it actually I didn't know. So I can understand if you are ignorant to the facts. I was ignorant to some of these facts. Like Flavor Flav said, you're blind, baby. You're blind to the facts. But we are living in the information age. All you got to do is pick up a book instead of a Tariq Nasheed. So we can all be ignorant to these facts, but being ignorant is not an excuse. Knowing is not an excuse, and it certainly isn't a license to ignore it when you encounter the facts and the truth. And it's not an excuse to see. No, I'm not going to say that. Let's just say this. Part of the reason I'm doing this taxonomy is to try to break these things down. That's my theme song. Shabazz, break it down. Try to break these things down so you can see not only do we have a problem with these cult-like repeaters of talking points, we have a problem with anybody who ultimately refuses to read, to research, to study, to accept the historical record. Now, I know for myself, I know I ain't going to make a dent into the impressionable minds of the willfully miseducated. But that ain't even why I do it. I'm here to make an impression, to make a dent on the impressionable minds of open-minded people. History is an amazing research study field, and we're never going to know everything. But we can pull up on some new information so that we can have a better understanding of who we are and what it is we're fighting for. And that way you can see when somebody's trying to distract you with nonsense. Let me see what's going on in the chat before I move forward. Mr. K says it's the hodgepodge method. Yeah, they throw everything but the kitchen sink. If you can pick up the kitchen sink, throw that too. Now, Sky KC says, I said I find indigenous FBA so funny and entertaining is everyone I have encountered, not one speaks any native languages. Indeed. And I'm going to tell you, I went down that rabbit hole with some FBA people. They actually had the nerve to make the argument that English is the FBA's original native indigenous language, and that FBA created the English language in England. And at that point, I was just like, I'm no longer, this is psychosis. I'm no longer dealing with somebody who has a mind or even 1 foot in reality. But anyhow, that's my anecdote. So let's move this, and it might be a good segue. The 4th category of this taxonomy we were talking about earlier, epistemic closure. I think this is a segue. This is the fact-proof fortress, the receipt deniers. So you have history revisionists. Now you can make your own judgment if you think the revisionists are within the deniers. Revisionists know what's true and they revise it for their own purposes. Deniers don't necessarily know what's true, but then when you give them something, they deny it. And we've seen that in today's chat. And so that's, I may not even go that much further with that. I wanted to, let me skip to what was that? 5? No, that was 4. Let me go to 5. Boundary sanctification. Boundary sanctification. This one, and I know I'm not going to be able to find that screenshot. This is what delineation is all about. Delineation in a nutshell. When you sanctify the boundary, this is when you hear brothers saying, we got to stick to the code. The code is the delineation. It's circular. The line is the code. The line is the gospel. Circular reasoning at its apex. So there is a brother who, let me see if I don't know if I can find this, but there's a brother that gave me a, see if I can find this. He gave me a screenshot, an image. I don't know. I was going to try to share it on the screen, and now I'm not going to be able to find it. Let me see if we can find it. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Yep. So let me see if I can throw this to the screen. Let's share the screen. So hopefully you can see this on the screen. So you can see this. It's not that big. I don't know if I can blow it up. Let me see. Yep, that did not help. So that might be a little bit better. Let's see how that looks. So benefits of delineation. So you see, like I said before, there was somebody that said, okay, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you, I'm going to learn you something, Shabazz. So they give us the benefits of delineation. Preservation of legacy, cultural integrity, empowerment, accountability, representation, unity with clarity. Delineation is a shield. It preserves. This is, even if you don't want to call it a definition, this is their working model. This is their working framework for what delineation is, for what delineation is supposed to do, for why they need it. So I'm going to stop sharing. Because again, I don't want anybody talking about, you just making that up. No. The comments that I'm reading are from real people on my pages. That bullet, that screen, that's a real screen. Now, every bullet point is true as a general principle. I'm not denying that. Here's the thing. In that nice, beautiful, black grounded, silver gray font, nothing says, where does the line go? What does the line do? It just tells you that the line is good. Now, in some academic circles, they say this is premise smuggling. You smuggle a premise in without doing a whole lot of heavy lifting. So this is what I'll say. The problem isn't that African Americans have a distinct history or identity. I've never said that. I've never denied that. A lot of times I like to paraphrase and rework Booker T. Washington's quote, because even though he said it about African Americans and white Americans, I apply it to the diaspora. We can be as separate as the hand, but we all operate on the same wrist, and that's one black fist. So again, the problem is not, we gotta have a distinct history. We already have one. We have had a distinct history since we got here. And the only people who don't know this are trolls, bots, racist white people, be they from South Africa, Germany, or America, who like to dabble in disingenuous commentary to help promote buying their Tesla trucks. So again, it's widely recognized that African Americans have a distinct history. There's another brother, and I always forget to pull his video up. My cousin played him maybe a week or two ago, and he has this poem. But he runs through continental Africans are Africans, English-speaking Africans are Africans, French-speaking Africans are Africans, and so on and so forth. If you don't know, go check out his channel. It's up there, Dr. Dennis Assault Winkler. But again, what I'm saying is we are all distinct and we are all a verisimilitude at the same time. So the problem is that benefits of delineation, according to the graphic, according to the FBA, assumes that because boundaries can be set, assumes that because boundaries can preserve legacy, they might even preserve culture, they might preserve unity, they might preserve accountability, they might. But it assumes that because a boundary can have a positive impact, their specific boundary is justified. And that's where I take issue. That's a logical leap. A defensible boundary has to explain who belongs. Now, once you get into the details, this is why the boundary don't make any sense. Because when you explain who belongs, now you got a ton of African Americans that you want to call FBA, but they ain't. Because the boundary that you grew turns into tethers. King Tether himself right here to let you know. So once you get to the point where the criteria chosen begins to make a mess of things, like I said, a defensible boundary has to be able to explain clearly who belongs and why the criteria that you've created was chosen instead of some other criteria. So why is Malcolm X? Why is it valuable to the African American ethnicity that Malcolm X is not one of us? Why is it valuable? What does it preserve? What legacy are you preserving by removing Malcolm X from this ethnicity that you're trying to rebrand? Where is the cultural integrity that you have held up by removing Malcolm X? Where is the empowerment by removing Malcolm X? And I know I keep saying Malcolm X, that's just one, but that's a very powerful one. Because the FBA had to deal with that once they found out, oh, hey, mama won't buy here. So just like the FBA person that said, I show speed shows and proves what the FBA culture does. Well, I show speed ain't one either. So again, why the specific delineation accomplishes whatever you say is the stated goal, and how does it do it better than some other alternative framework? As African Americans, we lay claim to Malcolm X. We lay claim to I Show Speed. We lay claim to all of the Africans, all of the enslaved Africans who have fought for our freedoms today, be they Black assimilationists, be they Trinidadian born but Pan-African minded, be they Jamaican born but UNIA minded. So until you can make that argument effectively, the graphic doesn't prove legitimacy of the boundary. It assumes it. Now, I thank the brother for giving it to me because at least it was a clear attempt at giving me a definition, but that's all it is, an attempt at giving a definition. It's not a framework that holds up to scrutiny. So again, I'm not attacking the existence of African Americans as a distinct people. We have our own culture. No shit, Sherlock. I'm attacking the logic used to justify this specific FBA ideological delineation. So you don't dismiss me as simply anti-FBA, although I am. But my questions, my commentary here is not anti-FBA. I'm asking for the same kind of explanations, logical fortitude, and justification that any serious historical or political framework should be able to provide. So I'm going to thank the trolls for showing up. Y'all don't realize how much y'all help the algorithm. Right, Shaka Jones, Brazilians and Portuguese speaking Africans. Cape Verde are Portuguese speaking Africans. Portuguese speaking Africans are all Africans just the same. Exactly, that's the poem. So again, let's continue with this commentary. Now, there was another, I guess, a advocate. It's hard for me to. They didn't have a name. Their handle was N5. And again, so NH5 said, "I'm Black American. We have no roots in Africa. Nobody calling Jamaicans or Haitians African Jamaican or African Haitian. Our culture, our language, our dialect is not African. Who we are is not African." This is what the person said. And then somebody else named Justice said, "FBA is Black Americans." What are you talking about, bro? Nobody's trying to separate from the Black umbrella. Nobody. Black Americans have their own culture and identity, just like everyone else. I don't see what the problem is. Okay. Again, what I'm saying is African Americans do not deny the fact, do not hide the fact, do not conflate the fact that we are a distinct group of African people. Continental Africans, in large, for the most part, they don't think we all the same. Koreans don't think, well, we all the same. Nobody thinks this way. FBA has been told that that's how everybody thinks. And it just ain't true. I'm sorry you drink the Tariq Nasheed, Jim Jones Kool-Aid. Now, as to whether or not anybody is trying to separate from the black color, my brother, you could be no more further from truth than that statement. Because the overwhelming majority of the FBA sites, the FBA community, is desperately trying to separate from the black umbrella. But both of these, all three of these accounts, I don't know if they will. Same move both times. Borrowing the legitimacy of what seems to be an uncontested identity. I'm Jamaican, Haitian. Those are uncontested identities. Everyone else trying to use that to sanctify a unproven claim. Zero connection. Full stop. So let me tell you. Because somebody else, everybody else gets to delineate, but the world gets mad when we do. It sounds so soothing. It might even sound persuasive, but let's look closer. Because the comparison that you're doing when you make this kind of an argument, you assume all identity boundaries are created equal, are created the same way. And all identity boundaries are not. What is she talking about? We holler out Jamaicans get to do this. Haitians get to do this. You're talking about nationality. We the Igbo don't do. You're talking about ethnicity. What about the Yoruba? You're talking about ethnicity. These are boundaries. Some are national, some are ethnic, some are even religious. Those are different kinds of boundaries. What FBA is trying, the flim-flam FBA is trying to run on everybody, is a revolving door of circular thinking, because sometimes FBA is a political identity, sometimes it's a historical class, sometimes it's a genealogy, sometimes a lineage. But all of these, they almost technically fail, depending on the argument being made. And they fail because, let's be clear, they fail because when it is espoused as the political identity, the question becomes, well, what work are you doing politically? So FBA, we need this label so we can make sure we preserve and we get our reparations. What reparations work are you doing? Nothing. Well, no, not nothing. I'll have you know, my good brother, I gathered up all my FBA compatriots and we went to Books a Million and we demanded the woman that lost the election cut us a check. That's political black power. You can't be serious. So when you use FBA as a political identity, you do nothing. You perform nothing burgers. And then when you get called out for it, see, you just don't understand. It's not about politics. It's about our history. So then it's turned into a historical class. So how is it used to make statements about our history? False narratives. We ain't never been helped by nobody. That's why we need this FBA framework, because it helps us remind us that nobody ever helped us. In history, the history gods are looking down at you like, whole thing. And so when you show them, well, look at all of these. Look at this historical fact. Look at this historical fact. The Haitians been helping. Caribbeans were helping. This cat. Oh, won't see that. And then they switch it. You understand, my brother? It's about our lineage. It's about our genealogy. The conversation itself hinges upon misunderstanding, miseducating what genealogy, what lineage, what ethnicity is. It's about our ethnicity. Because we are not all related. I ain't see you at my family reunion. You ain't gonna see me at yours, because we don't have the same lineage. For all the delineation that they say that the Jamaicans do, all Jamaicans don't get together for one Jamaican family reunion. All the Yoruba don't show up for one Yoruba family reunion, because it's not about lineage. That doesn't make sense. So you misconstrue genealogy and turn it into something about lineage instead of ethnicity, but you can't do that. That doesn't make sense. That means your framework has bullet holes in it the size of a sawed-off shotgun. But you want the world to think that you got common sense? When all your definitions shift, you don't have a framework. You have a wish list. So what I'll say is, before comparing one boundary to another boundary, apples and oranges, categories themselves have to match. Otherwise, the comparison trades the legitimacy of established national or ethnic identities without first demonstrating that the proposed boundary, the FBA line in the sand, functions in the same way. And you can't make the argument that it does, as it does not. These types of statements treat African, the word African, as though it can only describe current nationality. So let's talk about that. If I say I'm an African, if I say I'm an African American, am I literally talking about my passport? No. Am I talking about what country I'm allowed to vote in an election? I'm talking about ancestry. Now, when you talk about FBA, are you talking about your passport? No. Are you talking about your nationality? No. You trying to. But ancestry and nationality are different categories. Like there are some brothers, and I don't know if they're FBA per se, but there are some brothers that say we need to drop all the hyphens and just call ourselves American. That's at least on more solid ground. I disagree with it. So what I mean is, say someone isn't a citizen of Ghana, doesn't matter whether their ancestry traces to Africa. I know I'm not a Ghanaian citizen. I know I'm not a Nigerian citizen. That don't mean I'm not African. Because Ghanaians are not Nigerians. But you don't see Ghanaians saying, them Nigerians, they sure ain't African. Distinct identity and historical ancestry are not mutually exclusive. You got Italian Americans. They have developed their own ethnogenesis. No, they haven't, but that's your word. You love the word. Italian Americans have developed a whole distinct American identity without ceasing to have, to honor, to study, to recognize their Italian ancestry. They don't deny their Italian ancestry. Jamaican culture is distinct. Jamaicans are overwhelmingly descended from West Africans. They don't deny it. They don't deny their African ancestry. Their cultural distinction doesn't erase their historical heritage. And they don't make the claim. FBA does. The fact that Caribbean blacks embrace their African heritage should be enough to show you why striving for delineation is not as innocent as you think it is. It's riddled with problems. It's filled with problematic, xenophobic, divide and conquer type sentiments. Now, let me pause for a second. Get this off the screen. What's going on in the chat? Beat Actor says, Black American have always meant a person who is a direct African descendant of primarily African ancestry, aka African Americans, and that's just basic facts. User JV8 says, you forgot the various religious ideologies. We are the chosen people of God. Now they say, yeah, I usually try to stay away from the religious folk. Now, Big Growth says, when you get a chance, brother, I would love you to tell us the difference between FBA delineation and ADOS disaggregation. Maybe I'll do that at another time. That's not my top thing. Let me see. Mr. K says, Brother Shabazz, I notice how Divine is so super performative in his demeanor, facial expressions, and vocal cadence that he looks so face in his speaking manner. Okay. I'm not sure about that one because I ain't paying attention to Divine that much. Now, user JV says disaggregation is about data. Supposedly, delineation is about social ideological segregation. That sounds reasonable. I haven't, I ain't went down the rabbit hole. My ADHD brain ain't turned me loose on that one just yet. But Heat Active says exactly. FBA pretendians, both they don't know basic stuff like the definitions of words. For example, words like ethnicity, nationality, and race, or words like lineage, group, or terms like American. Exactly. And that's, again, I would love to be able to say, one of the things that I try to at least process in my mind when it comes to this FBA stuff is, like, I want to be on your side. But when you keep fumbling the ball every step of the way, you keep murking up definitions, you keep messing up words, you keep like, I got a stack. It's too messy. It's too sloppy. Sky says not one I have ran can speak indigenous languages. They give away. Okay, that's old. Okay. Okay, so all right. So now let me go back a little bit. And again, if you're just getting here, you've been here for a minute, like I said, come over to youtube.com/@the_perspective, and the @ is the ampersand. Hit that like button, family. I need those likes. That's all I'm asking for is likes. You know, you can give me some super chats, but likes and subscribes is what I really live for when it comes to YouTube. But let's go back. Let me go back to NH5. Now, I'm not sure if this was a second comment NH5 made or the same one. Might just be like, it's a longer version of it. So NH5 said, maybe I don't understand the FBA versus African American debate. But what is wrong with saying, I'm Black American? We have no roots in Africa. Now, I myself have called myself a Black American for quite a while. I didn't need that extra adjective. I still don't need that extra adjective. I personally don't have a problem with somebody who calls themselves Black American. That ain't what we're talking about. We're talking about the three letters. We're talking about the foundational fools. What is it? The foolish Black Americans. The foundational Black Americans. Again, I think I already said this, but I'm going to say it again. It bears repeating because nobody in the African American community at large, nobody in the Pan-African community at large is disputing that whether you call yourselves a Black American or you call yourself an African American, that there is a distinct culture. The question is whether cultural distinction requires complete separation from African ancestry. So NH5 says we have no roots in Africa. That is the tell. That is the problem. That is the false narrative. You can call yourself Black American all you want to, but that don't mean you have zero roots in Africa. You got roots, family. You got DNA, family, in Africa. The Jamaican and the Haitian comparisons, they sound persuasive because those identities are real, but they're national identities, nationalities, and they sit on top of their African ancestry, not instead of, not in place of. Now, nobody assumes that a Jamaican is claiming zero African roots when they call themselves Jamaican. They can call themselves Jamaican all they want to. They can call themselves Afro-Caribbean. They can call themselves African Jamaicans if they want to. Like I said, you don't have to call yourself an African American. You don't have to call yourself a Black American. There are people who would say, I just want to be an American. Call yourself what you want to. But we're talking about roots. We're talking about heritage. We're talking about DNA. Whatever word you call yourself, you're not going to remove that African heritage and DNA from your family tree, from your blood. Unless you simply don't honestly have it. There are a few people who have Native American ancestry all through their genealogy. And they just happen to be, they have popped off one drop. But that ain't who we are. And most times when you get that, those brothers and sisters were raised with the Native American tribe. So like I said, the existence of a boundary doesn't automatically prove that the boundary is drawn in the correct place, that the boundary is drawn with good intentions, that the boundary has a positive impact. And that's the trick in the whole argument. So when you say we are distinct from, And then you say we are disconnected from. Whether you say it in your mind, whether you said it on a comment page, whether you're saying it in the YouTube chat room, when you go from distinct to disconnected, I gotcha, that's a gotcha mode. Because at that point, here's the fact. Nobody's taking your identity from you. And nobody's saying Black American culture isn't its own thing. It obviously is. But our own identity and zero African connection, that's two different claims. And the only people that I have seen on my pages making that disconnection claim are FBA. And that is what is in dispute. Now, here's where we're going to get even more specific, I think. Because it's not just an argument. It's not just a debate topic. And I'm not just talking because I'm in my feelings. There's a whole field of academic professional study. There's an argument made by linguists who sit down and study language, and they study how humans talk and develop their speech patterns. There's a very real, decades-long scholarly debate in the field of linguistics about exactly how much African grammar survives inside African American English, AAVE. So again, this is just one example. You say we ain't got no connections to Africa. The words that come out our mouth a very specific way that is different from the European American, but they are more aligned with the African way to develop speech patterns. Now, there's a scholar, researcher, historian, linguist by the name of John Rickford at Stanford. He built what they call one of the strongest cases for this African connection. Now, I'm not a linguist. I was an English major, but I didn't choose linguistics. But there's a thing in the field of linguistics called, I'm going to put this on the screen. It's going to sound funny coming out my mouth, but it was called, here we go, family. It was called copula absence. COPULA absence. For anybody that's not watching on YouTube, copula absence. So what is copula absence? It's when African American vernacular English drops the verb to be. So, we tend to say, she nice, he nice. She dope, he dope. He running, she running. They running. Not she is. They are. Now, for a long time, a lot of African Americans had complex about that because we were being told in schools, you talk that broken English. Well, the professionals, the scholars in the African American community said, we're going to get together, we're going to study this and figure this out. Are we honestly talking broken English? Does that mean something wrong? And when they started doing the research, they said, you see, there's this thing. Now, we specifically chose to call it African American vernacular English. Now, when I first heard about it, I was like, I can't stand the term, but that's the term that the professionals gave it. When you go to Africa, call it pidgin. But it's the same thing. So AAVE drops the verb to be in constructions like she nice, he running. Now, John Rickford studied this, showed that the pattern lines up with how Caribbean Creoles and how West African languages handle the same grammatical spot. the same grammatical text. Text is the wrong word. And it ain't just him, family. That's one for you to look up if you are not immune to facts, if you are not afraid of research. But you can also look up Lorenzo Turner. Now, he is considered the first professionally trained African American linguist. Now, they're going to want to claim him too if they like what he say. He spent years tracing the Gullah Geechee, the Gullah spoken by descendants of enslaved Africans who, for some extent, were isolated. They one of the only groups who were, to some extent, isolated on the silence. Their linguistical patterns trace all the way to Sierra Leone, back to Twi, back to Ewe, to Yoruba, back to Wolof. And here's what makes Turner's story matter. Because before him, and another brother said it in the chat earlier, they say FBA seems to be taking 18th century white supremacist talking points. So before Turner got trained, there were white linguists. And they looked at the Gullah and they said, there's nothing African in it all. This was white people trying to push that divide and conquer. This is the same white people saying, the ancient Egyptians, nothing black about them. But FBA would rather take their word than the African American word. The white folks said it's just broken English. And Turner said, watch me work. And he proved them wrong. Now I'll give you another name. Geneva Smitherman. Geneva Smith has a work called Talking, I'm saying it wrong, Talking and Testifying. She dropped the G's. I wonder why. And she does the same thing with black rhetorical tradition. Call and response. That's what we do. We got it. It's one of our connections to Africa. Signifying. That's what we do. We got it because it's a connection to African roots. She traced back to African communication patterns. So again, we are distinct. Nobody ever denied that. We are disconnected. Now you got a problem. So to claim that black culture has no African connection at all, you have an agenda. That's not just a contestable statement. That's just not a conflicting statement. It's a position that has been losing ground for centuries. There's actual published scholarship for 80 years at least. This proves that idea. So again, nobody's saying black Americans are literally the exact same African. We are an African people. And even the linguistic evidence says that African language, African communication patterns all help shape how our culture talks, even after everything else is stripped away. And that's the part of the argument that doesn't survive the contact with the historical records, unless you do this. If this is your methodology, then you get to keep on going. So let me jump back in the comments and see what's going on. Mr. K says to G-Gin 1504. You don't even know what the hell you're agreeing with. Okay, so that's funny. But one says, why would Jamaicans be the same as the Arawaks? I believe I may be missing some of the chat conversations. Sky Casey says, yeah, that is what is ironic. Claim here from the time immemorial, but cannot speak one word or show historical proof from time immemorial. So again, let me finish. I might actually through this whole thing today, this entire taxonomy. I'm not too, yeah, because I think I'm in the middle of, I'm almost finished 5. So let me just say this, because this taxonomy of mine, I'm finished. Like I said, I got 6 categories. They're not etched in stone like the FBA ideology as it's shown mapped out on Tariq Nasheed's website. Although Tariq Nasheed himself, if you go by his words over his website, then his ain't etched in either. But anyhow, these 6 categories that I got, they're not coffins. They're not boxes where every comment, where every idea, where every utterance from an FBA advocate will have to neatly fit into one and only one. In truth, real arguments don't work that way. So what I mean is a single comment, like the one from in NRC, N5, whatever, I can't remember the name. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. But real comments often end up overlapping. So any given comment that you encounter, it can do more than one thing at the same time. So no, my taxonomy is not a filing cabinet. My taxonomy, I might not even supposed to say this. I would say perhaps an agnostic tool, but I'm not in that profession, so I gotta slow that down too. These are characteristics. My taxonomy is a breakdown of characteristics. Some talking points have one dominant idea. Others are running 2 and 3 at once. So if someone comes back after my video and wave off everything that I just said, you want to deny, ignore Rickford, Turner, Smitherman, because you don't want to engage with any of it. To some extent, that may no longer be boundary sanctification anymore. That might be epistemic closure. Because now, once the evidence is dropped into your lap, it's been put in front of you. It's been thrown down your throat, stabbed in your ears, and you refuse it. That's epistemic. That's epistemic closure. So again, the taxonomy, the category can shift depending on what happens next. So even if you want to say, we got all those categories and you can't even keep them straight, that's not the point, the purpose, the value of taxonomy in and of itself. Is to organize ideas and show you how they can slip and slide into each other. They can crash and collide into each other. And so I'm going to give you one more scholar. Maybe. No, I'm going to skip that. Just because I'm going to go ahead and get to category 6 and then we might be able to get up out of here. But let me see. I'm going to also, just in case, because I don't know if Pam Mulatto was still here. But I did throw the link in the chat just in case somebody wanted to come in and ask a question or two. Then depending on who you are, depending on what your question is, depending on what your demeanor and disposition is, depending on whether or not you're willing to show your face, will determine how we proceed. But category 6, and this does, here's my transition because a brother just said something about time immemorial. The FBAs, the Anything But Africa squad that likes to say we so disconnected from Africa because we was here from the very beginning. And my brother Cujo Atkins Battle had said something in reference to the people that said the black aboriginals on all the continents. Taxonomy category number 6, indigenous reclassification. This is that ancestor swap, that destiny flip, the mound builder mythologies or mythologists. Now, to be honest, most of them got this mythology from Dan Calloway, and to some extent, he worse than Tariq Nasheed. But these Dane Calloway Kool-Aid sippers who refuse to actually open up a book and read it, although they quick to tell you, ain't you ever heard of They Came Before the Mayflower? Yeah, Lerone Bennett wrote that book. Did you read it, or did you just stop at the book cover? They'll tell you Ivan Van Sertima showed it. No, he didn't. Did you read it, or did you just stop at the title? Because these brothers were great scholars, but they did not say the stuff that you said, that you claim they said. So this claim. Now, Pan Mulatto, I see you are in here. You on the link. I do not see a picture, my brother. We gonna see what you got to say, but hold on a second. So this claim that Black Americans are the original, the aboriginal, the indigenous people of this land, Turtle Island, saying that African Americans predate all African immigration, and we built the mounds. Now, I'm not making this up. This is the stuff. I mean, a couple of brothers in the chat have said, yeah, they have encountered these dudes. But there was a brother on my page by the name of DJ 100. There was a sister on my page by the name of Deborah Houston. DJ said, we have ancestors and grave sites that we can go to that predate majority of these African countries. And before the Haitian wars, we are the original people of this land. Just because you believe the white man brought all these so-called Africans from Africa is on you. Yet you never seen any Africans at any family reunions. Who you think the mound builders were? And Deborah Houston, where you could be a foundation of Black America, as if your appearance and your forefathers was here through slavery and before. Now, I got some information for you. Here we go. The Adena, Hopewell, and Mississippian mound building cultures, which include Cahokia, are extensively documented through archaeology, through genetics, sciences that FBA hates, and continuous oral history as indigenous American in origin. Now, they may have some melanin family, they may be copper colored, but they ain't African, and they ain't us. There is no credible evidence of African origin for these cultures. Now, if you are into books, if you are into wisdom and understanding, if you are into learning, then you would find out this is settled mainstream archaeology. It's not even a live academic dispute. Walk this mess into any history or archaeological class and the professor will tell you picked the wrong room. Get out. But let's see. So we got Chaotic Truth. We got Pan Mulatto. So before I move forward, I'm gonna bring y'all up. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I'll mute you and kick you off if you come inappropriately.
Peace.
Peace. Let me see if I can. I don't know if I can get all of y'all on the screen. So we got everybody on the screen. So peace to Pam Mulatto and Chaotic Truth. I would say Pam Mulatto can go first because I know he was here for a while.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief just because I never want to be long-winded. Respectfully, well, two things. Number one, your audio is choppy, and the point I
Okay.
came up to make is respectfully. I don't want to word it as a blind spot because you may take it as an attack, but you have to acknowledge that descendants of U.S. chattel slaves, U.S. freedmen, are not just of African descent. So when a U.S. freedman says that they have Native American ancestry, this is verified by DNA analysis. We
Mhm.
also have European ancestry. I even had some Filipino ancestry. But that's the only correction I wanted to make, and I'll pass the mic.
Okay. I don't necessarily, and I'm for that. I don't deny that. And I don't think that I don't think I was in that, but if I was, then I will correct the record. I don't deny that there are some of us, whether however we are calling ourselves African American, Black American, FBA, freedmen, etc. I don't deny that some of us have Native American ancestry, European ancestry. I can't speak to you. You have Filipino ancestry. That's fine with me. I don't have an issue with it at all.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you. Chaotic Truth.
What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I saw your title, FBA versus ADOS versus Pan-Africanism. Who's actually right or actually right? Zero mercy.
Mm-hmm.
All three are wrong. In my perspective,
Okay.
in my opinion, all three are wrong.
Okay.
In my opinion, on this planet, your country should come first. And I'm to the point now where, the other day, I was out and about, and this young lady asked me, she's an African girl, East African girl from Kenya. She asked me, "Are you African?" And I said, well, I would assume, to answer your question directly, yeah, I am, but I'm an American. She said, "Where are you from?" I'm from Ohio. She said, "No, where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm from Ohio. I was born in Ohio."
Mm-hmm.
We are so disconnected from our ancient ancestors that to me, it makes no sense to identify as foundational Black American, American descendants of slaves, or Pan-Africanist when our paradigm, the reality we live in, is Western civilization. And under Western civilization comes perks, right? Freedom of speech, freedom to practice whatever religion you want, freedom of expression. You can redress the government. You can address the government. Due process. The peasant in America, which is me. I come from thousands of years of hunters and gatherers. The nobodies, the people who in any other civilization would have been a farmer. That we could be somebody in this country. And this is the beauty of America. That's why I always say I'm American first. Because this country is one of the reasons why I'm not living in a mud hut or not throwing a spear at the neighboring tribe.
Hold on.
And a lot of people.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah, it's your show. Go ahead, buddy. No, absolutely.
Now I can appreciate some of what you're saying. I'm going to take issue, at least right now, with what I consider to be negative stereotypes of other cultures and societies. I'm not going to like you living in a mud house. You said
No, brother. That is his culture. He's Nigerian, brother. That is his culture he's speaking about. Really, he's telling the truth. You should listen.
I'm listening. But what I'm saying is, this is me personally. I take offense with trying to characterize any other world's culture in the way that you're doing. I'm just asking you not to do that. This is not about.
That's his culture. That's his culture.
Pam Mulatto. Now I muted you so that I could
That's all right,
speak.
brother. I'll drop down. Much love.
Again, I'm asking you, I'm simply saying I would prefer you not to make those types of negative characterizations. Now, I don't know where you're from. You told me you're from Ohio. Pam Mulatto says you're Nigerian. I don't know where you're from. I don't necessarily care. If you are Nigerian, cool. But I still don't want you to use those terms in describing whatever. I don't assume that that's what you were talking about. But I just don't want you to use those types of negative terms on my channel. That's all I'm saying. Now, go ahead.
No, and fair enough. So to land the plane, I see three groups of people who really don't understand the world. And unless you are an American, or identify as an American, then you're really lost, and that's what I just wholeheartedly believe. That's why when the young lady asked me, "Are you African?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? That makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm just a pure blood American." And I hope America lasts for thousands of years, in whatever iteration, right? If hell, if we become a spacefaring race, spacefaring country, whatever. So I don't see any institutions behind any of the three. I don't see any systems. I don't see why people to this day even identify as one of the three. I used to be a staunch Pan-Africanist when I was in college. I ran with a lot of the pro-Black groups, Black United Students at the university that I attended. And a lot of it was just people who, in my opinion, it was just liberal arts students who couldn't make it in STEM. And this is what they fell back on. They fell back on this tribalism nonsense. So that's just me. Land my plane, buddy. Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I don't necessarily know that I have too much to say in reference to that. I keep saying over and over, I don't necessarily have a problem with anybody calling themselves whichever label that they call. You know what I'm saying? So I continue to say FBA, have at it. I already made reference to there are plenty of people who just want to be called an American. I say, yo, for whatever you want. Now, I stand on my position that I call myself an African American or an African in America or an African in the West. That's me. Most of what I do on this channel is not to convince anybody they should pick or choose any of them. Most of what I do is try to make the argument that there are facts being hidden, misconstrued, etc. So again, I can't dispute that the college that you went to, you were running with Pan-African brothers. I can't dispute your anecdotal history that they couldn't make it work or whatever it was. That's cool. I know of Pan-Africans, college bound or not college bound, who do make it work. And I've talked about them on my show multiple times. Now, me here in Richmond, Virginia, I don't know a lot of Pan-Africanists. And I'm not saying that they're here. I'm saying I don't know a lot of them in Richmond, Virginia. Although when I was in college, I did run with some brothers that were Pan-Africanists. Most people that I ran with, once they graduated, they went back to the cities that they came from, etc. But aside from that, one of the things that I talk about on the show is I have seen Pan-African collaborations and systems. Because one thing you said, I think you said, was nobody has any systems. Now, not that I'm trying to cherry pick, but I would say, I almost agree with you that the FBA crowd doesn't have systems. But I'm not trying to say that just so I can, have another shot at FBA. I'm saying but I have seen that are Pan-Africanists that have systems, provided we're on the same page about what a system is. So when I say system, what I'm saying is, for instance, I did a story in New York, and now I'm forgetting which borough. I want to say Queens, but I'm not sure, where there was this Pan-African grocery system where there were Caribbeans, Black Americans or African Americans, and continental Africans that all created this co-op, so that whatever restaurant that they individually own, they all buy products, goods together to lower the prices for everybody in the co-op, and they can thus increase their profits. To me, that's a system. Now, I'm cool if you say, no, that's not a system. That's not what I mean. Because we can, like, everybody's going to have their own opinion on what a system is or what this is. But what I'm saying is, so there's one example that I saw as a system. There was an example that I covered about a Ghanaian who rescued an African-American owned bank in Chicago. And because of his financial rescue, that bank is still open like 10 or 15 years down the road, still servicing all of the people in that community, be they African American, be they from the continent, be they from the Caribbean, people still going there. To me, that's a system. I had plenty of FBAs tell me that don't count. Okay. I'm not trying to convince anybody that the way I look at it is the right way. What I'm saying is there are facts that keep getting overlooked and missed. Now, what you do with the facts, like with the taxonomy I was breaking down, if you hear the facts and say, I don't believe you, if you hear the facts and say, I don't care, well, that's why I did a taxonomy. I'll land my plane there for now, at least.
Fair enough, man. I'm
open.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like I said, I appreciate you giving your view. I might be curious about what Pam Mulatto said, but I don't necessarily think that it's germane, because, like I said, I know plenty of people who, to some extent, espouse what you're saying. I know African Americans that have, like I said earlier, they don't want hyphen. They just want to be American. It's a long-standing conversation in this community. It has always presented itself in all types of dialogue. It was a part of the Harlem Renaissance. It was a part of all of the movements that we've had. Dr. Dennis Assault is here. Let me see. The link is in the chat if you went up in here. Dr. Dennis Assault Winkler, Dr. Dahl. Not so much of a debate, but the brother Chaotic Truth said that, if I can, he said that when we look at my topic, FBA versus ADOS versus Pan-African, who's actually right, zero mercy, he said that in his opinion, all of us are wrong. And to some extent, the only right answer would be, we are American. Now, if I mischaracterize your comments, Chaotic Truth, then you know, let me know.
You're good.
Okay. So, Dr. Assault Wiggly, if you want to come in, I did drop the link. I'll see if I can drop it a second time. Anybody else?
Have you been to Africa?
Yes, I have.
Okay. In which countries?
I have been to Ghana, Senegal, and Egypt.
Oh, okay.
What about you?
Never been.
To any of them? To any country in Africa?
Never been. I've been invited, but I've never been. I've been invited. I have a good friend who lives in she lives in Joburg. But for the most part, I don't think Africa is worthy of a person like me to come. You know, it's not developed enough. Any of the countries. I would love to. But
so you say you don't think any African country developed enough for you to go to?
Maybe South Africa, but I don't think that Africa deserves the likes of Americans. You know, we are obviously from a first world country. We are superior. You know, we
Superior?
participate. Oh, without a doubt, Americans are superior to everybody on the planet. I mean, we live in the greatest country on the planet, and you know these countries are, you know, for the most part, horrible infrastructure, horrible systems, corrupt governments,
Mm-hmm.
and for individuals who come from places that pretty much are like heaven, you know, where I live at is like heaven on earth.
You said you live in Ohio, or you're
Yeah,
from
I live
Ohio?
in, I'm from Ohio. I live in Ohio. I live in Northeast Ohio.
Okay. I'm not familiar with like the geographical territory of Ohio. So, uh, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's like, you know, like what's the major city in the area that you're from? I'm just curious.
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. Now okay, I got a little bit of understanding. Okay. So okay, I mean, like I said, you know, I think it's inappropriate. I think it's arrogant to say some of the things you said, but you have a right to say them. You know, that's your perspective. You know, this whole superior, it does sound like something that comes out of the white supremacist playbook, but you know, that fits my taxonomy. So for me, you're proving my point, but okay. I was thinking, hoping, let me see. Bawana is in the house. Let me pull Bawana up to this up on stage and see if Bawana has something he wants to add. So Bawana, go ahead. You're on.
Good day, good brothers. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So first let me say the comment about the spare chucker comment, that was a wild comment. I think it was hilarious, you know, but it was a wild comment. But I'm thinking about some of the things the Mr. Chaotic Truth alluded to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I mean, I agree with you that comment was wise. That's why I asked him, you know, to refrain
Migratory
from
patterns.
it.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. No, you went out a little bit. So,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Maybe you can't hear us.
Okay. You can hear me now?
Yes. Buwan, you still there? Let me send him a private chat.
1 2 1 2.
Are you still there? Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, yes. So, if you were to think about the migratory patterns currently with many African Americans, they are actually leaving heaven to go to Africa, to go to Ghana. You see many African Americans now currently living in Ghana and all over the African continent. So the question becomes, why are these African Americans leaving heaven to go live in some place Mr. Chaotic Truth would probably consider to be substandard, inferior, etc., etc., etc. The second point I really wanted to make is his spare checking comment. So I thought about that, and I'm thinking, okay, so one man in the back of a village throws a spear at another man, but that it's just that one man killed. But at the height of his Western idea, you see a guy, he's dropping a bomb on a school full of children, girls going to school. So which one is worse? I mean, is this evolution? You know, is this humanist? Is this a height of humanity where you drop bombs on school children going to school? You know, America is a country right now, and I'm not bashing on America, I'm bashing on Western society, that has chosen to elect a person who is a possible pedophile, who is running with possible other pedophiles, who is a 38-time felon. This is the height of Western society. This is superior in the minds of some people. So my question becomes, I mean, when you do a comparative analysis, is dropping bombs on schoolgirls, better than throwing a spear at some person living in a hut in the village? I don't know. Maybe Mr. Chaotic Truth could answer that for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Those are our enemies, regardless of what they are. Those are enemies to us. Who cares? We're imperialists, and this is what our country's known for. And people like myself who have grown up in this beautiful country, you have to definitely lay down the law globally. And if unfortunately, if that happens, so be it. It is up to the people of it's up to our enemy countries, or it's up to countries to create a level of defense for their own people. And so everything that this country builds for us, everything that this country does for us, we have to cherish that. Because if this country collapse, that's that for Western civilization. We go right back into the caves. So all of humanity, for the most part, we go right back into the Stone Age. All of us. Globally.
Mr. Chaotic Truth. Before there was the United States of America, there was England, and there are older countries than America.
That's still Western civilization. That's still Western civilization.
But your statement is, if America goes, you go back to the caves. But I'm saying that America is a child country of other imperialist societies. So it won't go where you still will have your England, you will still have France, you will still have other countries who has these ideas of Western civilization as well.
Okay.
That's really all I really wanted to say. I hope you got good brothers. Have a great conversation. I'll just leave it there.
Thank you. I'm still here.
Okay, thank you.
My avatar real quick.
Okay, thank you. I don't really know what to say. I would imagine. I don't see. I'm gonna ask a few questions, but I'm not necessarily trying to ask them as gotcha questions. But since you say, you view America as the golden chalice, you view America. If we lose America, you said the entire Western civilization goes back to the caves. Now that's a heavy statement, and Bwana said something to address it, but I'm like, but you also said everything that this country does, we should cherish it. Everything that this country does for us, we should cherish it. Now, I really think that, there's a lot of wiggle room in the statement. So, this country, we should cherish the fact that this country drops bombs on other nations. We cherish the fact that this country literally dropped bombs on its own citizens. That's something that happened as well, and we should cherish that. So again, this is not like people in the chat are like, this is not a gotcha kind of conversation. This is okay. If that's your view, who got to disagree with you? It's obviously a faulty ideology, but once you've bought into it, you just belong to the taxonomy. This country heinous track record on killing its own citizens and allowing its own citizens to kill each other. This country's heinous track record on police brutality, not just of African Americans, of other groups, because white people get killed by the police too. Latinos get killed by the police too. But these things that you say we should cherish, nobody's going to talk you out of that. That's the sycophantic ideology you've chosen to believe in.
I'm listening to you, buddy.
Okay. Well, like I said, thank you for sharing your opinion. I mean,
any questions, or I'm listening to you.
Well, no, I don't have any questions, honestly. Like I don't, like I said, but there's nothing for me to question. You made your statements. To some extent, I sort of addressed them. I don't have a question. Like I can't say, you really believe this? Like, you believe this. There's nothing for me to ask you. Now, if somebody else wants to come along and ask you a question, then again, link is in the chat. Let's see. Active says USA is the only country that does the rest of the country in the Americas. USA is the only country that does let the rest of the country in Americas to prosper. Okay, well, there are words missing from the comments, so I don't know how to address that. Mr. K says, you see what I mean? He's insular about the world outside the US to know what we're talking about. And they laugh. Beat Active laughs. If US goes away, the world will go back to the Stone Age. Yeah, I mean, you know, those comments. I mean, I know that you're making them for shock value proof purposes, and I know that you believe it. And there's nothing else for me to say about it. It's ridiculous.
Why?
I think I just elucidated.
Let me ask you a question.
Like, again, to say that we cherish.
Well, let me ask you
everything that let me answer. To say that we should cherish everything that this country does includes all of the atrocities. Now, see, it's different if you say cherish the good things about the country. Okay, yeah, no, maybe so. Cherish everything about this country when this country has grotesque histories of killing its own people, particularly African American. No, that's a ridiculous statement.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Go.
If you had the opportunity to prevent the transatlantic slave trade, would you prevent it?
Yes.
That's okay. You would prevent it. Okay. Fair enough. And you are aware you would not, but you are also aware that you would not have been born. If you go back and prevent it, then the space-time continuum will be totally different. I mean, because your parents probably met because of the actual transatlantic slave trade, like different African groups being brought over to the Americas. They may have even been already in the country. Who knows? I have no idea, but you do know that would change history drastically for you.
I disagree with you. I think that at least scientifically, no way to show and prove that is an actuality. So philosophically, we could say, well, philosophically it means I would never be born. I could simply say, well, philosophically, if I was destined to be born, then I would have been born regardless.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah. You're a science guy too? No, I'm asking, man.
I don't know what you mean by science guy.
No, I mean, are you into science fiction?
Yeah, I'm into science fiction. Now, how much I'm into it depends on what you mean. Like, there's a brother whose name I mentioned. What's up, Dr. Daw is in the house. I'm gonna let you say what you gotta say. There are some people that are into science, and I think they go a little crazy with their ideas about science. But Dr. Daw, how you doing, cuz?
Peace, cuz. How you doing? Peace to the.
I'm good. Peace.
I haven't heard much, but I was just some of the things that you restated, and some of the responses or the lack thereof of people's counterpoints to his arguments. I find pretty interesting that I heard you ask the question. I heard you say, well, you obviously believe what you believe. And I'm kind of curious, does he believe what he's saying? I mean, I don't know if you asked that question. I'm just like I find it hard that he does believe what just a few things. I could have it told, just a few things I've heard. I just think that I think he sounds like he's a bit of a contrarian to me. So, I mean, just the bit of what I heard. Like the idea that we should cherish everything in this country? Absolutely. 100%? That's the question.
He's asking you, Chaotic Truth.
Yes, you should.
Like 100%.
You should, yeah.
No rebuttal, no rebuke, no needed changes, nothing.
Like what? I mean,
I'm asking you.
no, you
Like
should cherish everything about this country.
There's no need for change from your perspective.
What is there to change about America? America is literally the greatest country on the planet. I mean, what
Well,
is
we're
there
talking
to
about
change?
America has in the workings. Do you think that we can do better?
I mean, anybody can do better. I mean, I guess the next stage of
Well, no. I'm asking
being
about
better
America.
is
I'm talking about
yeah. I
America.
mean,
Talking about
I
America.
mean, yeah. If
Yes,
you're talking about
no, what? Yeah.
yeah, if you're talking about colonizing the moon or Mars or something, or becoming a spacefaring country, then sure, why not? Why not?
So,
I think that's the
so
next phase of America being
what
better.
about our slums? You don't think America can get that better? You were speaking about how these third world countries
Who?
they're not worthy enough of you traveling to them. And the only place in Africa, I think you said, was South
Joburg.
Africa.
Yeah.
Huh? Like,
No, go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
what about like so even like northeastern Africa? There's nothing there for you either.
Shithole. Shithole.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It is.
So yeah,
it is a shithole. It's
what makes it a shithole?
you said East Africa, so you talking about Somalia, you talking about Ethiopia, you talking
I
about
said
Egypt.
Yeah, I said so.
That's
Yeah,
North
yeah.
Africa, and those are shithole countries. I mean, hell, Egypt has a very corrupt regime right now. The government was taken over in a coup.
What makes
I'm
them
sorry?
shitholes? I said what makes them shitholes?
Their standard of living almost every metric makes them a shithole. Almost every
What
metric.
about so what about
Standard of
islands?
living. Who?
Do you feel the same way about islands like Caribbean islands?
Well, Caribbean islands are a part of either the United Kingdom or the United States. So those islands typically probably are far better conditions. I mean, listen, Puerto Rico isn't New York City, but it's still a territory.
But
you know,
you asked,
I mean,
brother,
go ahead.
proper perspective of question, and typically people ask that question about have you been to Africa as somewhat like a got you type of thing. But have you been
Sure.
to Africa? Have you been?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. I don't want to go.
So,
I don't want to go to Africa.
So where are you getting your evidence from? I'm certain proper perspective can tell you of some of the most beautiful places in Africa, quite even more or less more humane than when you go to even some of the struggles that we find in these places you say are controlled by the United Kingdoms or the U.S.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I've never been to Africa, but oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
What
go
about
ahead,
the Caribbean?
Go ahead.
You been to the Caribbean?
I don't want to go to the Caribbean either. No, I've never been to the Caribbean. I've been to Europe, but I've never been to the Caribbean.
Oh, okay.
He's kind of breaking up. I can't barely hear him.
Okay. Pardon me. I'm just curious.
No, you good. You good, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man.
Right.
So where did this come from?
Where does what come from?
How long you been thinking like this? How long you been
ever
thinking
since
like
I was
this?
ever since I was a child, ever since I was a kid.
Were you born here?
I was born in Northeast Ohio.
Oh, do you consider yourself African American, African descendant?
I consider myself an American. I don't really go around saying that I'm black. I mean, obviously I am of African descent, but I don't necessarily consider myself an African. I just consider myself an American. Yeah.
Okay. I think you're a free thinker, brother. I think you're a free
thinker. Yeah,
thinker.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah, I just think you're a free thinker. I think that you're one of those people that could possibly even change your views tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, I have nothing.
Awesome.
All right, brother Papa. I just was curious because I was driving by and I saw you were still on. I saw the brother who looked like he's from the continent, but at least he says that he's of African descent. You know, he just seems to be more of a conservative type of person who follows and espouses those type of value systems, which I think is problematic personally and collectively. But you know, that's where he is.
Indeed.
All right, dear brothers.
Okay. All right. Peace, cuz.
And he's good. I see he got a nice channel too. So.
Word.
Yeah, I just looked him up a little. He got a nice channel. I didn't look into his content, but I saw he has a nice channel and he's nice for at least some conversation here. Peace and power.
All right, peace. I'll talk
Have
to you.
have a good one. I'm still here, buddy.
If you have any other statements that you want to make, I'm here for that. But like I said, like I can tell that you kind of sort of honestly believe the American exceptionalism. And no matter how ridiculous I think it is, I've covered most of the ridiculousness of that statement. So I don't have too much else. I might do my little closing, and then we're gonna get ready to get up out of here, family. If you're here on TikTok, now I know this last little exchange you just couldn't hear, you couldn't see it. I do apologize, but I keep trying to press upon the TikTok audience to at least take a few moments to come on over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@the-proper-perspective, and the @ is ampersand, not the AT. I'm getting ready to get up out of here. So is there any last comments that you wanted to make?
No, man. Thanks for having me up, man. I'm glad you brought me up, man.
Okay, I appreciate it. Hopefully, maybe
you go live over here. I'm sorry.
My goal is to go live every Tuesday and Thursday, and every Tuesday Thursday at 5 o'clock. That's my stated goal. I'm usually here for a shorter amount of time. I had some technical difficulty today, but yeah, Tuesday, Thursday, 5 o'clock, and then sometimes me and my cousin, that was Dr. Daw, sometimes we do a double up on Saturday, 8 p.m.
Sounds good.
What about you?
I normally go live every single day, Monday through Friday. Sometimes the weekend between 10 a.m. and 10 through 4, 10 through 5. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just go ahead and you can drop down and I'll do my close. So y'all heard it from the horse's mouth himself. If that type of thing floats your boat, y'all know where to go. He had his name up there on the channel, Chaotic Truth. So for my closing, I'll just say, look, my taxonomy, 6 categories, pages full of comments, room full of comments, for the most part, strangers that I don't know, and they don't know me, and they don't know each other, running the same handful of scripts. And across every one of them, you're lucky if you could count up 1% of truth, 1% of actual truth. And even that 1% needed a correction. So my taxonomy is, like I said, it's not complete, it's not finished, it's not done. It's a living document. Every new comment that I get, be it from TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, or what have you, every new comment I get, and I might even work in some of the American exceptionalism that Chaotic Truth was talking. I'll work that into the taxonomy. And so, like I said, if anything I said today made any sense to you, like, share, and subscribe. If you still here, make sure you share this video with somebody else. Drop a comment on the video page. Tell me which category, 1 through 6, you've seen the most in your own encounters. Do me one better. Take a screenshot and send it to me. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is The Proper Perspective. Let me see what's going on. Mr. K, Dr. Dennis is all agreed he's just a shock jock clout chaser. Saw those comments. I'm going to use some of those comments again because some people saying he's a shock jock. So I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And like I said, what I like to cover is the facts. I know I'm not going to convince anybody to step away from whatever ideology that they have aligned themselves with. But aside from that, the biggest thing I try to cover, the biggest thing I try to challenge are the facts. I know y'all gonna keep calling yourself FBA. I know y'all gonna still continue to defend FBA. But I also know I'm gonna clap down on every lie That's the biggest thing that I'm here for. Push back on the lies. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Now, I'm not sure what this is, but whatever my cuz got going on, I pushed it back to Sunday. Make sure y'all check that out, or you know, do the thing and support. So shout out to everybody. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe. Hit those buttons. You will see me again Thursday at 5 p.m. On Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, so on and so forth. This is the proper perspective. This is your brother Shabazz, and I'm up out of here. Yes, indeed, we want to represent it.
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So